Hello, and welcome to Webpack Wednesdays.
It's fine.
Cool.
That's how you say hello. That's
Just how I decided to do it that time.
Yeah, good.
So, Webpack Wednesdays,
Yep.
we're here again. It's another Wednesday, and today we're talking about performance,
Yes,
but the web kind.
web performance
Right.
specifically. Not. We're not going to start dancing. There'll be no
I know, I just
useful
want,
performance.
this isn't a self-help or anything. Anyway, let's talk about web performance. What are you going to tell us about it?
I'm going to tell you about how to make your websites faster.
Yeah, that's well, we all want that.
We do, yeah.
In this world in which we live, it sounds like a song's about to start, but in this world in which we live, there's a lot of apps out there
Yeah.
which are kind of changing the way that the people build websites, because you get a really great fast experience on apps, and we want to kind of recreate that on the web. The web should be just as fast as apps, but for some reason over the years we've kind of got a bit, I think most web developers got a bit lazy about performance on web applications.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. I think there's a few things with, SEO is a key factor. So Google have actually stated publicly that performance is one of the things they take into account when they rank the pages. So
Right.
a poorly performing site is going to potentially get penalized in terms of search optimization. The studies around e-commerce checkout as well, a page that performs badly will convert at a lower rate to a well-performing page. Bounce rates as well, which is where you go from the search results to a page and bounce straight back out. Again, performance is a key thing there. So there's lots of, as well as it just being a nice experience, there's real kind of tangible business reasons why you should think about performance in terms of your website.
So okay, I've got my website.
Yeah.
How do I get started in making sure it performs as
As well as it should do.
that's the
Yeah.
words I'm looking
Okay,
for. Yeah,
good.
thank you, Martin.
Well, there's lots of really good tools out there that can help. There's three that we're going to talk about today.
Okay.
There's one called Slow, which is
Why slow?
Slow. Well, it's a good name really, because if your website's slow, you might think
Why slow?
indeed, and why slow? We'll tell you why it's slow.
All right, okay.
Yeah. There's another one called Web Dev Checklist, which is quite good, especially for ASP.NET.
Okay.
Google have a page speed insights tool as well, which is really good. So all of these tools take the approach of basically scanning the site, comparing it against a sort of rule set, and then giving you advice about how to make it faster, basically. And they all use slightly different rule sets, but we're going to look at all three and just see how they work. So we'll start off, we're going to use Chrome for this demo. The reason why we're using Chrome, we wouldn't normally use Chrome for this kind of thing, but a lot of these tools manifest themselves as extensions, and we don't have extensions yet in Edge.
Okay.
So that's why we're using Chrome. So I need a website, Martin. What's your favourite website, just to get us started with?
What's it need to be? It's like my favorite website is my website.
What's your second favourite website?
I've got a good one.
Yeah.
Ling's Cars.
Ling's Cars.
Yeah. I never go anywhere without
Ling's.
daily visiting Ling's Cars.
Okay. So Ling's Cars. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cheap business car leasing. Okay. Seems like a decent website.
Seems legit.
Right. That's quite an impressive site there, Martin.
Yeah. Ling's Cars.
You visit this on a daily basis.
Yeah. Obviously for all my car leasing needs.
Well, this
came out like years ago. I can't even remember when, but it was like a joke of a site which did all the worst things, like animated GIFs and stuff. And it's not a legitimate car leasing site, really.
Isn't somebody's business website.
No, but I do believe, I can't remember, but the person which actually did this actually
Ling,
yeah, actually did a parody web conference where they were the keynote. I can't remember. Someone will remember out there, but I can't really remember what it was now. But this was like for use for all throughout the web as an example of like all the worst effects that the web can offer.
Brilliant. So this is a really good example to use. So okay.
Look at those GIFs.
Look at those GIFs. I don't know where to look. It's amazing.
It's brilliant.
Although I'm drawn to the chicken. I don't know why that is.
Well, it's just, I guess the idea is that they've got so much going on this website.
Yeah. The chicken seems like the only sensible thing on there. Anyway, so we're going to take Ling's Cars. Now, I've already got the Slow extension installed on this. So I've just gone to Slow. I don't know if it's .com or what. Just search for Slow and you'll find it.
Yep.
And what this lets me do is it lets me take the site that I'm on in the browser and run a test. So it's going to download all the HTML, look at all of the requests that are required to render this site,
Yep.
and it's going to compare it against Yahoo's rule set for web performance.
Okay. So Yahoo have come up with a definitive list of tests, which they run against the CSS, the JavaScript, and all the different elements inside of the page.
Exactly.
Do they look at? Well, I suppose here it shows.
There we go. Yeah. So this isn't doing so well. I'm surprised about this. I must say. I thought this was going to be a finely tuned piece of web development. So this is scored the grade of D. So you're always going to get a score between A and F, I think it is. A being the highest, F being the lowest, and then you're going to get an overall score as well. So this is 66. So this is quite low. Yep. Most websites without specific optimization work, they're in the sort of mid-70s kind of range. So 70-something is where we see most websites show up. So what this does is it gives us all of those rules. It tells us where we grade against each of those rules. So with this one, we can see that we're making a lot of HTTP requests.
43 external background images.
Yeah. So this is a really important one. So basically, you want the browser. So each one of these requests is basically a piece of work the browser has to do. It has to go and download something from a URL. It has to do that a lot of times in this particular one. Like you say, 43 background images. We've got 8 external JavaScript files, 3 style sheets. One of the main goals of performance is try and reduce the number of requests that the browser has to make.
Yep.
And we'll talk about some tools for how to do that in a bit, but that's one of the main things to remember.
There are hard limits for browsers about how many actual concurrent processes they can actually run. I think it's something like 6 or 8 concurrent requests that they can make.
So you have to wait for those to finish before it can
and then there's something about if they're on a proxy that they can do more or something like that. But there is in one of the standards, maybe for HTTP, TTP, I can't remember what now, there is a standard of saying how many requests you're allowed to do. So a browser generally is blocked by its own, by itself. Not that it couldn't make any more, but it won't make any more.
Yeah.
So it has to do 8 then in blocks of 8 or however many. So yeah, it can become a real bottleneck.
So it's saying there we need to reduce the number of requests. We've got some recommendations about using a content delivery network. So for static content like images, JavaScript files, CSS, use a CDN. We're not going to go through all of these. We'll just pick out some of the key ones.
So content delivery networks are the thing where you've got a JavaScript file, and rather than that JavaScript file sitting on your just standard web server, you use a content delivery network.
Yeah.
To then place that JavaScript file closer to the user.
Exactly. Yeah.
So when the file is requested, it won't go to your server. It will go to the CDN endpoint.
Yeah.
And those CDN endpoints are all over the country.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's especially relevant if you're an international business like Link Cars.
Yeah, clearly.
Then you can have customers all around the world, and it's especially important there. But also, even if you're just a regional business, then it's still important because, say, if you've got something like jQuery, much better to grab that from a CDN because there's more chance that the browser will already have that cached from a CDN rather than your web server. Expires headers is probably one of the other main things you can do to aid performance. So this is really quite poor in this one. So we've got 187 static components without a far future expiration date. What this means, a far future expiration date is where the file itself has an expiration date. It's a kind of piece of metadata that's stored on the file. If it has that, the browser is able to cache that file, so it doesn't have to go and get it again until the expiration has passed.
Yep.
Now, what it's saying here is there's 187 things that don't have those expiration dates. So every time we refresh this page, the browser's got to go and get all 187 of those items. It gives me a list of all of the ones in here. So there's a few that have got a near expiration date, which is relatively near, and there's a few with no expires on, which basically means it's a far future one as well.
Right, okay.
So that's very important. There's some stuff it does well, so put CSS at the top, that's important because we want that to render at the top of the document, we want the JavaScript at the bottom of the document. The reason for that is because if the JavaScript's at the top, it has to execute that before you can start loading the actual document itself. We've got some other things, we're not doing anything with redirects. Minification is another key thing here, which is scored badly on. So this is this idea of taking JavaScript files and CSS files and trying to compress them, get all the white space out, trying to make those files as small as they can be. And there's tools to help you do all of that stuff. So a lot of stuff to look into there. So you can take your own website, use this plugin and have a look. The other thing I wanted to look at is the Components tab. This is really interesting, especially if you've got a lot of content. So this is really quite a large website, and it's got 402 components. So that's 402 individual things the browser has to go and get in order to render what we see there. Most of those, by the looks of it, are animated GIFs.
Yeah, which are the finest GIFs available.
Indeed,
finest images that you can have on the internet.
Look, that's 345
that is a ridiculous
amount of images. But yeah, there's eight JavaScript files. So these JavaScript files can be combined into one file using a technique called bundling or concatenation. And likewise with the CSS, these can also be combined into a single file. So that's a single request. If that's minified as well, it's as small as it can be. So to do that, it depends on how you're writing your application to do that. So if you're using Gulp, there are Gulp plugins to do that. We've done a talk already on Gulp and how that works. If you're using Visual Studio, there's an extension Visual Studio to help you do that. So there's lots of different ways you can do it. But concatenation or bundling and minification are really important. I
can't remember what the name of that extension in Visual Studio is called. It's
It used to be Web Essentials, but it's now just called the bundling and minification extension. It's a really good name.
Yeah, because it means means what it does.
If you want to do bundle things and minify them,
call it that.
Call it that. Yeah.
Are you listening, Gulp? Like, what does that mean? Nothing. But
So the final one, and this is a really interesting one, is statistics. So this is where we're going to compare the empty cache, which is if you've never been to the page before, versus the primed cache, which is where you do an F5 or refresh. So this is the empty cache. So this is where we get our 402 components, the massive 8,000, nearly 9,000 K of data. Now the prime cache is a little bit better. We've got only 190 components, but only 56 K of data. So actually there's a lot of stuff that has been cached by the browser, even despite the lack of expiration headers.
Yep.
So that's pretty good. So really good tool, YSlow, for analysing this stuff. If we just take that same URL and get off that page as quick as we can and look for page speed insights. So this used to be an extension, but Google don't run this as an extension anymore. It's just a website. The same kind of thing. You just put your URL in, click analyze. Now Google use Google's own rule set. They don't use Yahoo's. But it's the same kind of idea. It analyzes it against that rule set. Now that's interesting. So it's kind of is that responsive? I don't know. But
yeah, no. This is the thing about Lynx Cars. There's clearly someone which has put this together who does know what they're doing.
Yeah.
But they've done it in such a way that it looks like they don't, which I'm in full of.
If we take the desktop view is what we've just seen, and there is a mobile view. So
that's an amazing mobile view.
It is actually a responsive website. There we go. Who'd have thought?
New. The best frequently asked questions in the world. Go to Choices. Anyway,
I kind of want to go there on a phone now just to see what happens when you go to Choices. But anyway, so you've already seen. So it splits between mobile and desktop, and it applies different rule sets for each one of those, which is quite an interesting way to look at it. And it doesn't so much give grades; it more just gives a kind of high importance, medium, and low importance.
Okay. Or
actually, the green ones are past rules, so the ones that you've done a good job of. So in this one, it's saying that eliminate render blocking JavaScript and CSS in above the fold content. So it's basically saying there's JavaScript and CSS that has to load above the fold in order for the site to render. And we've also got the same thing around browser caching. So this is the far future expiration headers. And we've also got some stuff around image optimization as well.
Yep.
So actually, this one isn't too bad. 75 out of 100 is not bad because the Google one is generally a bit harsher than YSlow, so the scores are generally a little bit lower. And quite surprisingly, the desktop one's pretty good as well. So there's a bit about image optimization, browser caching again, minifying again, but generally speaking, it's not quite so bad. Now the third one I wanted to show you is this thing called the Web Dev Checklist. So this is a tool that's maintained by the same team that do Web Essentials and Visual Studio. And it's not so much just performance, it's just general web stuff. So it's looking at accessibility, usability, mobile, SEO, but it also looks at performance as well. If you go over to Web Dev Checklist, it really is just a checklist of just good practice things to do on your website. So if you're building a website, it's good thing.
Okay, so this is the sort of thing that you would go through. So did that extension there actually do some of the checking for you?
That extension does, yeah. So you can see we've got, if I just zoom in, it gives you a tick or a cross depending on whether. So this has a favorite icon, so it's ticked that one, but it doesn't have valid HTML, so it's put errors there.
Yep.
It doesn't use any of the ARIA landmarks, or it's missing alt attributes on images, and it doesn't score well on page speed either. So
well, it scores 84 out of 100. That's the same as what we just saw, isn't it?
It is, but for some reason that's a cross. I guess it needs to be better than that.
Yeah,
in order to
like
get a green tick.
Yeah.
So this is a great checklist. So at the moment, this is set up for ASP.NET 4.5, but hopefully this will be updated to 5 at some point soon. But if you're using ASP.NET 4.5, it's just a list of things that you can do in ASP.NET to make your site run faster.
Right. Okay.
And like I say, if you're using 5, things are slightly different because you're more likely to be using Gulp in ASP.NET 5. So you're going to use Gulp plugins to do a lot of this stuff. But the principles are the same across the board. But one of the things about performance is the way you implement the things is different depending on the language and the server and all that kind of stuff. But the idea of having long expiration headers, for example, is something that goes across all of it. So those are just 3 tools and an interesting website. So you might be thinking kind of, okay, that seems pretty hard to do. There's quite a lot of stuff there. I just want to show you a site that I've been involved with that does very well for performance.
Is it Lynx Cars?
It's not Lynx Cars, no.
Right.
No. It's babblekids.co.uk. So this is a website that's hosted on Azure. It's written in ASP.NET 4.5. And it's a normal e-commerce website. So there's nothing particularly special about this. It sells baby bibs and blankets and things like that. It has analytics, it has databases, it has APIs, it has all the things you'd expect to see for this kind of a website. If we do a test on this, we'll see that, and this took about 3 or 4 hours of optimization, following mainly the web dev checklist stuff, but also the YSlow as well. It's scoring 92 out of 100. The areas where it's gone wrong, it's not using a CDN. The reason for that is because it's only a very regional site, so there wasn't a lot of benefit in doing that. So I'm just going to click Add CDN and see the score go up to 97. That's a good little trick as well, if you want to do that.
You're just fooling yourself, though, aren't you?
Yeah, well, yeah, but it still makes you feel better. So generally speaking, this does well across the board. There's some stuff about expires headers. So there's an issue there with Google Analytics doesn't have an expires header.
Right, that's probably because it doesn't want. It's a far future expiration date. It doesn't want one probably.
Yeah, and so certain things are out of your control. You can't you can't make it all work. But there's some stuff here about e-tags, and there's a few files that I haven't got here. But generally speaking, this is quite a well optimized site. There's still quite a few components here, and it's still quite a hefty site.
Yep.
But when we look at statistics, this is really the key thing. So the initial load is relatively.
You can zoom into that because particularly well.
The initial load is relatively normal, so it's 26 requests, obviously nowhere near the 400 or so from Lynx Cars.
Yeah.
But
you haven't yet optimized for animated GIFs, though.
No, that's true. That's true. It has 19 images, and it has 1.2 meg of data. But the interesting one with this is the primed cache, because what's happened there, because it's got expiration headers, because it's got minification and bundling, and all these other things that have been recommended. There's only 2 requests and only 6K of data when you visited the site before. So the vast majority is more or less offline. The vast majority of the site is cached in the browser and will be until the cache expires. And that's how you really make sites feel fast. The initial load you sometimes can't do a lot about, but the secondary load, or the primed cache as YSlow call it, is really where you can make some good optimizations.
Okay, cool.
So that's all I wanted to show you really. So we've got basically. There's some tools, there's YSlow, there's Google PageSpeed Insights, there's the web dev checklist. They're going to tell you different ways to implement things, but it's things around expiration, caching, minification, bundling. You can use Gulp to do a lot of that stuff. You can use Visual Studio to do a lot of that stuff. There's lots of tools out there to help. But it's definitely worth just spending a few hours with this stuff because a lot of it's really quite easy.
Okay, well, there's some homework for you if you want to try and improve the performance of your pages. That's all for this week. We'll see you next Wednesday for Webhack Wednesday.